Tonight, we have the pleasure of announcing we have Carol Scheftic, who's here. And I love your description. She's an artist, an explorer, and teacher. And I didn't know this about her. She was actually a math teacher. And
Bruce, you can do math and art too.
yeah, statistics and computer science.
Oh.
So, yeah, this river runs deep. Tonight, she also works in precious metals, but I see she has brought quite a few creations, from earrings to necklaces, and she is going to walk us through her technique for this particular art form, but she has many, and she does explore a lot and try different things, but looks like jewelry is the focus tonight. Right, absolutely. So she has a studio in Regent Square. And I'm very anxious to see what she's brought tonight. So take it away, Carol.
Okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and then I'm going to talk about a few specific pieces, and then I'll do the demo, because I want you to kind of see where it's going as opposed to just starting. But precious metal clays were started in the late 1990s. And there are two companies. One is Mitsubishi, they make all kinds of stuff. And they came out with a product called PMC, which stood for precious metal clay. And the other one was Ada Chemicals. If you're a photographer, you might have heard of them. They were involved in a lot of photo processing. And the old kind of photo processing with negatives and silver on it. So Mitsubishi was, drilling through gold and had little bits of gold dust left. And Ada had silver dust left. And so it was a research project to try to figure out how they could use this stuff. It's not just waste, it really is valuable stuff. A lot more valuable now than it was then. And the two of them will argue over which one really came out with it first. But the truth is, it was the same scientists who kept changing back and forth on jobs. So it's those scientists, it's not the two companies. I will say, sadly, Mitsubishi stopped their production of PMC last year. It was my favorite to teach with. These are the two that came out first. I have bags of all other different kinds that are on the market now. There are lots of them. I can work with all of them. PMC was the best one to teach with. So they all have little quirks, and that was the one that had the least quirk for beginners. So if I occasionally make odd comments, that's where it's coming from. I'm working out of my stash of this. I actually brought this to you tonight. So a little bit about me. Although I was teaching math, I did a lot with visualization. You had to draw pictures of everything that, it wasn't just moving X's and Y's around on a sheet of paper, but what does this mean? And I lived in England for a couple of years, and I took a pottery class there just at night, loved it. Came back to the States, tried to do some pottery here. And the only place I could find to do it, the good pieces kept disappearing. Oh, not the crummy ones. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do that. So then I took a metalsmithing class, and the teacher of that single-handedly turned me against the idea of ever doing metalsmithing. I later on realized he was just a bad teacher, but I didn't know that at the time. So I went along with my other stuff, and I did some beading. You'll see, some beaded samples over there. That was just fun, nothing major. And then I heard about this metal clay stuff. It is powdered metal mixed with an organic binder and water. So it's all clay techniques while you're working with it. This is what it looks like. It looks like chewing gum. Oh, okay. But it's soft. I'll do a demo with it in a couple of minutes, but it's soft. You can roll it out. You can texture it all different kinds of ways. Are there any potters in this group.
I dabble.
Okay, any metalsmiths? Okay, that's good.
You can tell us anything.
Yeah. Well, if there were a lot, I'd be tempted to use jargon, and now I know I can't, but, it's in a mixed audience, I shouldn't be using it anyway, so that's good. So it's all clay techniques while you're putting it together. And, here's a piece I can pass around. Grab it. It's, there are textures. Let me tell you where the textures came from. Vinyl wallpaper samples from creative reuse. Okay, I mean, you can use all kinds of things to tell you. This is a coaster from Altmeyer's. This is a rubber stamp, polymer clay people. This comes from a polymer clay company. They use it to texture things. I don't know where I got this one from. There's all kinds of things. There's a whole bunch of them here. I make my own textures. I live near Frick Park. I will walk through Frick Park with a little blob of molded compound and just, grab trees or bark or whatever and do that. There are some that have been carved into clay and baked. So, there's all kinds of types of polymer clay and baked. So, textures can come from anywhere. When you start doing this, the universe becomes texture. You cut a piece of cabbage open for dinner and you go, I want to cook salad or no. Oh, it's really tricky. But this is, I took a class finally. I heard about it when I lived in California. It was only after I moved back to Pennsylvania that I actually found a place where I could actually take classes. This is the very first piece I ever made. And the beater, I put beads on it. And it's a hollow, two-sided hollow piece. This one is the second piece I ever made. It was also part of the class, these two little peanuts. These were molded some cork. There's this stuff called cork clay, but it's moldable cork. And then you paint the silver on it. And then you put it in a kiln and fire it, which is how you turn the clay stuff into pure silver. Is it goes in a kiln and it gets fired, just like pottery does. All the binder burns off. And what you're left with is just the metal. So people talk about this. People will say, is that metal clay? And I will go, no, that's silver. Metal clay was the process. Just like, if you use lost wax casting in silver, it's not lost wax that it's the process. And that's, I think, something that's really important that a lot of people don't understand. They think it is clay, and it's not.
Question. When you fire it, does the piece actually reduce in size?
Yes.
So you have to account for that as you're
Yes.
making.
I make rings for myself. I don't make rings for other people because you really have to deal with it on that. But yeah, it does shrink. And it depends on the clay you're working with. It can be anywhere from 8% to 28%. It depends on which. Now, the 28% is good if you want to get really, really fine detail. You make it bigger and you let it shrink down. Okay, if you want something that's really representative of what you have, then you use lower shrinkage clay. But yeah, they do shrink. Okay, so when I started doing this, silver wasn't very expensive, and then it shot up, and it keeps going up. It's now about 8 times the price it was when I started. And I'm still doing it. Let me wait a minute. I've got one. Wait, where is it? Oh, this one. The biggest piece I ever made. When I made it fairly early on, I would have charged $500 for it. Now it's more like $1,200. I'm not making that size anymore. Okay. If I want to go big, I'll use bronze. Okay. Bronze, that's a little locket. Gotta work on the class, but it's a locket. Bronze, and there's now bronze, copper, steel. They cost a lot less. They're trickier to work with and trickier to fire. So in terms of what I sell them for, I have to account for a lot more of my time in it, but the material's less. They're often not good for really beginning students because there's a lot of quirks to it that they crack a lot more and you have to pay attention to that. But somewhere here, this is, which one? This is copper. This is copper powdered metal with the binder in it. And so I take some of that, mix it up, and I can work with it like any of these clays that already come pre-mixed.
You just add water, you think?
Yeah, to that I just add water.
What temperatures do you fire to?
Depends on the clay, but silver is 1650 Fahrenheit. I don't know cones on it if you're asking that.
I'm just curious where I do Kilmore glass and it's.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's something to do with
Yes.
glass.
I can bring it, yeah. It's hotter. It's hotter than what you typically do with glass. And I just realized I don't have any of those here.
Well done. I'm just curious what the.
Well, if I want to do that, okay, so let me back up a little bit on metals. Most of these are fine silver. And fine silver is just silver. And it will be hallmarked 0.999. That means it's 99.9% silver. It's not 100 because I can't guarantee there's not an atom of something else in there somewhere. Sterling silver is typically marked 925. That means it's 92.5% silver, and the other 7.5% is something else. In most cases, it's copper. And if you're doing traditional metalsmithing, that makes it a little easier to work with in a bunch of ways. And it makes it a little sturdier in the final process. So it depends. If you're doing fine silver, it's 1650. If you're doing sterling, it's a little bit lower. But glass still is tricky. So what I typically do if I want to include glass is I make a base of sterling silver, fire it because it's going to be good and strong. Put the glass on it, put a little bit of fine silver on it, and all the fine silver is doing is just holding it in. It's not structural. Okay, and then you fire it at a temperature that the glass is happy with. That silver bit that's holding it in is going to be under fire, but because all it's doing is holding a piece in, it's not like you have the edge of something that's going to break off. Because there's glass in it, you're going to be careful enough with the glass. It's going to be good enough for that. Okay, so as I said, the price of silver started shooting up, and I started making pieces reversible. Okay, this one, I'm still beating at this point. Maybe somebody here from New County will get this one. I really made this for Pittsburgh people. Moon and that. It has a moon stake on one side, and it has some squirrels on the other. And there's one big bead and two little ones and a bunch of snowflake obsidian. Another thing you can do, you get the name of the camera, with it is because it's a clay form, you can just roll it out and you can pick it up and you can just fold it. Okay, you can't do that with traditional metals. So this is a design I could not do in traditional. As I said, two-sided. Yeah. It can't help the price I have to charge you for the silver and give you two pieces for it. This was rolled out thin. That would have to be a flex clay. Couldn't do it with the clay I brought, but it's one that remains a little bit flexible when it's dried. Paper punch. These, same kind of way, these earrings, but these where I have a little silhouette cutter, like a silhouette cricket kind of thing. That's how those were cut out. Okay, so you can do all kinds of things with it. This was etched with a cricket, with silhouette. So the little design just etched in there. There are gold metal clays. I didn't mention them earlier. They came out the same time as the silver ones did. You think silver's expensive? Well, gold is. But there's a little bit of gold accent on them.
Do the clays mix well? I mean, when you're mixing two metals, the silver and the gold, like that application there, is there an impact on your firing and what temperature?
What I did on that one is I fired the silver first, and then just applied a thin layer of the gold and fired that onto it.
And that doesn't affect the silver, that's
Yeah,
already
you can-
been fired.
Just like pottery, you can fire the silver a bunch of times. You can't get it too hot. Okay, but more time isn't a problem.
How big's your kiln?
I have a picture. It's small. The inside chamber, well, I have two of them. The bigger one, no, which way you say bigger? One is 8 by 8 by 6, and the other is 7 by 7 by.
Okay, so that's small in comparison.
Yeah, about I can put for pottery, I can fire a mug in it. But I think that lots of little pieces in it. Let me see if I'm not recognizing my face because of the mask. The mask is because I fell several months ago backwards, broke 8 ribs, 6 in multiple places. Not all of them have been united. I'm panic stricken at the thought of anything that will make me cough. So
Okay, so
for my hand,
yeah.
this is the smaller one. Yeah, with the silvers, you can also fire with butane torch. You can just fire it that way. It's I wouldn't do that. I would never do a ring that way. There are some people who do. It's not going to be as strong. You want me to do this?
Oh, there you go. Yes.
It's not going to be quite as strong that way. So I would like never do that for a ring. But in the ring, it's just in a fine depends on the clay. Some clays have to be home fired, but the PMC and the art clay you can work fire. There are also steel clays. My second favorite after silver is steel. And the thing I can do with steel, I don't have very many examples here. That steel has been blackened, which helps it resist rust. And then there's a little bit of enamel. But I do all kinds of enamel on it, and it works really well. The enameling on steel works well.
Yeah.
There you go.
There.
Okay. So that's not paint, that's the color of the steel.
Yeah. The steel. It's a black metal version of steel. Yeah. I could polish it, and it would be the white metal, but then it would be more prone to rusting. The blackening it is a preservative. It will still rust. I mean, I wouldn't recommend swimming with it, but it shouldn't just rust under normal circumstances. The other thing, if you really get into the steel, you don't want to enamel, you just want to make pieces and sell them, is gun gluing works. So, the things that people put on their guns, reserve guns, you can put on there, which, and then your search history looks like you're a gun fanatic. Yeah. Oh, here's this. Here are a couple. This is here I can pass some. I'll pass that one around and pull the other one up to the camera. Copper and bronze combined. Okay, so that's the 3 rivers with the Steelers like a cycling.
You know, that's.
That's the geometry in me coming
I
out.
was gonna say, that's the thing about your pieces, I don't know if you said it or not,
Yeah.
but most of Carol's pieces are two-sided.
Yeah.
So like the necklace I'm wearing here, it has one print on one side and one print on the other, so I can flip it.
And here's another one, this one rotates. You know, I'm just holding it up constant, but it rotates around, so that's what they do it that way.
Carol, how do you do that? Is that like inlay?
Actually, I'll tell you what I did, that one was a gear, a washer, there's gear on one side, washer on the other. Okay, and you take the one clay, you press it in to make the indentation. Okay, you let the piece dry, and then you take the other one and fill it in and inlay it.
Do you air dry the clay just, or do you, like in ceramics, you have to sort of keep it moist, covered with plastic?
That's one of the things about these new clays. Okay. And one of the reasons I'm not pulling this out, one of the big differences between ceramic clay and metal clay is ceramic clay, you can just work on it, you know, and you can just kind of leave it there. You know, you don't talk to somebody else, you know, and you come back. You're in a class, you go watch a demo, you come back and you play. Metal clay, once you start working on it, you've got a couple of minutes before it's dried out.
Oh,
So
wow.
you gotta get in there and, you know, have planned what you're gonna do and just do it. Some of them, you know, maybe half an hour. Yeah. Some of them it's 5 minutes, you know, so that's a big factor in there. Some of them, you let them dry, you know, you set it out to dry, and you know, you can set it on a flat place to dry. This is one thing I'm gonna demo for you, but those were dry with a little paint palette, okay, to give them the dome shape. That's how a lot of those, you know, double, you know, hollow ones come. Some of them will just sit there and they're fine. Some of them you get them on there nice and curved, and as they dry, they come up. So you keep pushing them down. Or if you want it flat, it curls up. And so you have to keep, you know, watching it and flipping it over so that it doesn't. Those are the quirks. And no, there's no one rule. It's depends on the clay you've got. And that's what it's down to, is they use different binders. Okay. Some of them use CMC powder. One of them, I think, uses beryllium husks. You know, all kinds of different things that are used as binders. And the performance of it varies depending on the binder that's in it, which is, of course, trade secrets. So you just have to practice with it and figure out what it has.
So on a piece like that first necklace, did you solder those two pieces together?
Let me show you that first. Let me get this a little bit. Let me put it in here. This is compared to pottery. I told you the negative thing about this stuff compared to pottery. The positive thing is, if you've never done pottery, you make a shape. Now, if you make a mug, you know, you throw yourself a little mug, you want to put a handle on it. Well, you have to score it and on both sides, and you have to put some slip in, and you have to push them together, and then you have to smooth everything out. Let me show you. One of the reasons why I went into bricks. I'm looking for a small impression. And I put my glasses up so I can see what it's doing. All right, so what I have here, you can use a little bit of water in a cup. And I have these two pieces. They're plain on the inside. They're textured on the outside. I textured them, cut them out, put them on this to dry. About an hour while I did something else, okay? They were dry enough, then I just made sure they kept that shape. And then I let them dry overnight. I went back the next day and I sanded them down. Just using sandpaper, get a nice flat surface on each And then I looked at them and I thought, okay, this is the best way to attach them. I marked a spot. Okay, so that these are the parts I want to line up. Okay, now, take a little bit of water. And put it on this one. And take a little bit of water. And put it on this one. And what I'm doing essentially is I'm reactivating the binder. You know, it's dried out and I'm moistening it back up so the binder can do its thing. And the first pass is soaked through. So I'm giving it a second pass. And then I'm going to take these two pieces and I'm going to find the places I want them lined up. And I'm moving it just the tiniest little bit. And it's essentially creating slip in the process of doing that.
Now, do you drill the hole like for the ring now before you fire it or after you fire
It's always easier to do it before you fire it. Yeah. So there you go. It's stuck. It's together. That's it. It's really easy.
it? No, you
So I'm not gonna do any drilling now. I'm gonna make sure, you know, that little thing is, you know, and I'm going around the edge just to make sure in case my sanding was a little bit off, so that the two pieces are nicely attached. And I actually am off like a fraction of a millimeter on where I wanted to be, but I'm not trying to match the pattern, so that's the thing. So now I have a reversible piece.
A question though, so you said that when you put it in the, when you fire it, the
The binder burns off.
the bind, so how are they still stuck together if the binder burns off?
That's a process known as sintering. And that's what causes it to turn to end up with just silver. Okay, what happens is the atoms are there and they're separated by binder. And the binder burns off, but you get it just short of the melting temperature. If you got it at the melting temperature, those atoms would go, okay? But if you get it just short of it, they just kind of pull in and their little electrons hook up with each other and they form a crystal, they form the silver crystal structure. And so that's what's happening here. I have just enough slip in there that those atoms are gonna interact across. One of the things you pay attention to is cracks. You don't want to look for cracks. You don't want to have cracks. You look for them because the silver is milled down. You know, it's like, I mean, that thing I passed around. You saw how light and fluffy that was. You know, if you could actually feel the binder in there, but if you can actually feel the metal that they use for this, they get it down into micron size. You know, it's thinner, it's smaller than your finger can feel. Okay, so you touch it and you don't feel it because it's so small. But what happens is, you know, so when I'm talking these distances, these are really, really tiny distances. But if I have a crack in there, well, this guy is going to connect to the piece over here, and this guy is going to connect to the piece over there. So cracks will get bigger. Pieces will shrink, ring sizes will shrink, but cracks get bigger. But it's, you know, it happens, so you look out for it. It's not a problem.
So is there any reuse? So when you have failed pieces, is there any way to reuse that silver?
Well, it's a question of where the failure is. I mean, if I do something like this and I go, you know, I really didn't get that lined out the way I don't want it, I can, you know, make sure this is good and dry. I can grind it back up, rehydrate it, and just reuse it. So, you know, it's not like if I'm hammering on sheet metal and I screw it up, that sheet is done for. If there was a problem, it came out of the kiln and, you know, there was some big crack that I hadn't noticed, then you can recycle it just like any silver product.
Have you grinded it?
The clay form of it, I can't grind this up.
Oh.
Okay. The silver, I don't, I recycle it just like you would, take it to your favorite, silver buyer, and do that. This, people, there's two ways to do it. I usually just stick it between two wet sponges and let it get moist and then work with it. But there are people who will buy thrift shop coffee grinders and grind it in the coffee grinder. So let me set that piece aside. Then we can get one on here to start with. So you can see. My first little chewing gum. And I mean, honestly, that's what I thought, when I put that. Oh, wait a minute, there should be one other thing.
Is that what comes in that package, or that's, you use some of that?
This is how much came in this package.
And do you mind saying how much you would pay for that?
Well, this one's no longer available. That would probably be about $60. This costs more than cheap silver. I mean, you can recycle it, which, you can, in the clay state, you can just reuse it until it's right. As opposed to sheet silver where you have to recycle it and you don't get the full value back for it. But yeah, it does cost more because of all the manufacturing that goes into producing it. Pass this around. This is a little set I use when I teach classes. These four all have the same texture on them, but showing how you can just have a little plain flat piece. Might be nice. Or you can just dome it a little bit. I added a couple little balls for embellishment on the other side. This one has the same two textures, but it's two layers with a little, background to it. This one is one of those hollow pieces. This one doesn't have the same textures, but it's the same idea as the hollow, but you can cut and open it in the hollow and put something inside it. But this little other guy that's in here, this little heart, this is what it looks like when it comes out of the kiln. It's white. Because what has happened is all those silver particles have lined up. I've used the term, they've lined up in a silver structure, silver crystal structure, and they're all kind of standing up saying, we're here. And the way you get the shiny thing is you burnish them. So you take a burnishing tool, and honestly, the first 2 years I did this, I used a stainless steel spoon, and you can just take it and just, burnish it down. You want to get in the hollow, you take the side of the spoon, but if you get all the silver crystals kind of pushed over the same direction, that's where that's where the shine comes from. So you start with a gray clay. You end up with this kind of lighter gray when it's dried. You fire it, you get the white stuff. Then you polish it, and you get what looks like silver if you're working with silver, or gold if you're working with bronze. The skew comes out kind of a funky gray color, and you can either polish it white or you can polish it. You can polish it or not polish it, and then repeatedly put it in fire and quench it. And that's called hot gluing it. And then make it roughly resistant if you want that. Okay, so let me grab a little piece here. And I'm gonna quickly wrap this piece back up so it doesn't dry out. And I have a little olive oil in here as a lubricant because it's sticky. I don't want to stick to my hands. So I'm gonna take this and let me put this on for a second. The universal measure of thickness is cards. And cards are used in metal clay, it's used in polymer clay. they're actually called playing cards. This is 6 playing cards glued together and then cut in half. I use these in my classes. This is 5, this is 4 playing cards stuck together. So I take these to class. You can also, because the playing cards are a standard thickness, so, you know, you can use them as a measurement down in, you know, millimeters. Wait, where's my little picture? Let's see, 6 cards is 1.5 millimeters. That's a standard roll. I have these are just little plastic strips, you know, the same size. And the thing I like about these is if I want to go for something bigger than this, you know, longer than this, I can just go longer. But I'm going to start out with my, oh, here. Get a little bit of oil on it. And now I'm gonna, oh, and I've got a little Teflon ironing sheet here. Some people will use the little kind of brown colored things that you dehydrator sheets. Things you put in a dehydrator. They're basically a, you know, silicone thing that this stuff doesn't stick to. And so now I'm just kind of gently rolling it down to 5 cards. And I'm picking it up and turning it over so that I'm getting something pretty even in different directions. And now I've got that. And where's my little collection of pastry colors? Oh, right here. Come on, Carol, you can do this. And I think this is the size that works on this one. I just have to find the circle one here. Okay. So I need it to be as big as this in one direction because I'm going to roll it and that'll stretch it out the other way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put just a little oil on here, just a tiny bit. And this, again, this is with students. You get them to understand what a tiny bit is, because if you put too much oil in there, you're going to degrade the clay, but you need a little bit. And then I'm going to put it on this texture. Wait, I found the circle. In case you haven't seen what I'm looking at, it's a whole bunch of little zigzags, and they're in a circle on here. I'm going to put that down there. And then, because I want a texture on the other side, I'm going to take this piece of vinyl wallpaper sample. And I'm going to take this down to 3 cards. 3 cards is like 75 millimeter. That's a good size for a single piece. Put that down there. A rolling pin. And we'll start in the middle and roll towards me. I'm going to go back to the middle and roll away. And now I have a little piece that's textured on the side. And I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to cut her and hope I can see what I'm doing in this light. And I'm trying to center it. I think that's pretty good. Maybe go this way just a little bit. Okay. And just cut it. And I didn't boil the cutter. That's okay. So now I have this little clay that I'm going to bit of clay that I'm going to reuse. And I'm going to carefully put it away before we deal with my surgery. Because I don't want that clay to dry out.
So even though there's oil on it, it could evaporate or it doesn't affect it.
It doesn't stop it drying. Okay, so now I have this little piece. a little down piece. So now I get to look at it and say, okay, do I like it like that, or do I want to down it somewhere? I think I'm gonna do it. And, I've used all kinds of different things. These little pallets are easy to carry around. Used light bulbs are good. They're nice and round, and the thing you want to get is something that's fairly round, so if you don't get it perfectly centered, it will. And, I'm pressing down enough to get the clay down, but without swishing out the texture.
Yeah. At what temperature does that little?
1650 degrees Fahrenheit.
At what temperature will it flatten out though?
Oh,
I mean, what happens if it goes too hot or?
yeah, that's more a size thing. Bigger ones are more likely to slump. This is, of the size, I'm not gonna worry about it, although what I will probably do is I have a couple little ceramic bowls, and I fill it with vermiculite. Fine vermiculite. The chunky stuff will make marks in it, but the really fine stuff is fine. And so you just, set it on that. Set it on it like that. Okay, and it will hold the shape. This one, okay, one side is curved this way, the other side is curved this way. I'll probably put it in the vermiculite like that. And I'll put it a good bit of the way in, and wherever the hole is will be exposed so the vermiculite doesn't get inside it. Okay, so that's one down. Let's do another one. Now, one of the things I will tell you is I chose this side where I was very clearly trying to center myself on a particular place. This one is just kind of a random sidewalk. I don't know from afar. I'm not sure what the pattern is. So it doesn't matter where I come. I mean, if you really want to, align them, you have to pay a lot more attention to that. But I tend to be, if you really look at the pieces, you can see one side has a very deliberate choice on it, and the other one is something where I could cut it. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Lay back out. And I'm going to take those two pieces. The other thing, if you're going to get multiple pieces out of the pack, you do the biggest one first. So you're working increasingly with smaller and smaller pieces. If you're a potter, that's the equivalent of wedging. I'm just smashing it to get all the air out of it. And then that's, what I'll sometimes do. I could roll it and try to get it nice and centered, get it nice and even around. But the other thing to do is to just press straight down. And that gets me pretty good. And I can look at this now and you can see it here. There's little gray swirls in it that weren't there before in the original piece I took out. This is two pieces that have been used, smushed together, and the little gray lines are the oil. And I can tell if I've overused it, if there's too much gray in there, I know this is going to be really hard to work. Okay, so I kind of got it down close to where I wanted. Do this. And now I'm going to make sure that that's long enough to fit over one side and close on the other. So it's a little more oil on that. And then I'm going to put down there. And then a little bit of oil on this side. And 3, 5, this on top. And again, kind of aiming for the center in the beginning. Roll one way. Go back and roll the other way. They didn't quite get that, but that's okay. I'll do this is slightly different. So now I have this piece. And it's got the poster on one side and it has this pretty deep texture on the other. So now I'm gonna take my trusty little, what did I bring? Deckle edge crafting scissors. I just grabbed something. And I'm kind of looking at the pattern on the scissors and kind of trying to line it up a little bit. And then, how do I do that? And then that edge is a little, that's where I didn't quite get the whole edge. So we'll just use that part of the scissors there. And then we'll do the same thing on the other corners. Any questions while I'm doing this? You just have to speak up because I'm not looking up.
Is there a firing schedule or do you just stick it in there and turn the kiln up?
No, there's a common schedule.
I don't understand that question.
Well, you have a schedule where it goes up to a certain temperature, maybe it holds for a while, and then it goes up, you know, it ramps up at certain.
Yeah.
Certain temperature, certain length of time, and sort of you drop down to 72s.
Yeah, I'm doing a little fine tuning here. The silvers are fine. You just put them in, you do, you know, a full speed up to 1650. Hold it for, the strongest you're gonna get is if you hold it for 2 hours.
Oh my.
Unlike pottery where you do it slower, but you don't hold it real high at the top.
Glass is the same way, it's slower,
Yeah.
you don't hold it as long.
Yeah. What you do if you want to combine glass with silver, if you do it slow up. I mean, I don't remember it off the top of my head. If you're interested, you can get in touch with me and I can tell you.
Yeah.
I figured out the part.
I'm just curious right now.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have to fuss around and do the nice slow cool with the glass ones. The base metal, copper, bronze, steel, those are, you do it, you get it up to a certain temperature and make sure the binders burn off before you go up to the maximum. So they have the multi-step process. Silver just. Okay, so now I have another little piece of it.
And I noticed like you're not wearing anything on your hands or anything. Is there anything that from that clay is toxic of any level or anything?
I'm told there is not.
Okay, okay.
You know, with the silver, I'm not gonna worry about it. With some of the base metals, I might, but I think, you know, I kind of think about how much exposure I get. You know, I probably wouldn't have, you know, played with it quite as much with one of those.
Okay.
But, you know, and I try to, you know, not have open cuts that it can get in, but just, you know, on my fingers. I mean, it is, the metal particles on the small enough, I suspect they could get in, but
I just wondered.
no, one of the things, I mean, that's why I said, you know, it's like, methyl cellulose, which is in plant stocks, or, you know, psyllium husks is actually used in some of them, so, you know, you take those, you know, it's not a problem, yeah. But it's a good question. Okay, I'll tell you one or two other things. So I did this for a while. This is clay. And remember how I said I started all this with clay, regular clay in the first place. So then I discovered miniature pottery. These are wheel thrown miniature pots. These two here are actually raku fires, if you know anything about raku. That's a whole extra process. I don't use that in my own kiln. That requires extra stuff. I take classes and workshops to do the raku, which they're here and fire them. They cost a little more because I have to go to a class to fire them. And then I have these other little dollhouse ones. They're all different kind of colors on a wheel. They're wheel front. If you want some time, I can come back and I can do a wheel front demo for you. The wheel, I actually feel, shows about, this big. The wheel has, I stick a poker chip on the top and use that as my back.
What do you put down? Like you can put your finger.
Well, tools. The best thing to put down for opening.
Yeah.
Little cocktail sticks, little square ones with the ball on the end. Those are what I open. You can use fingers on the outside. Also, you can cut, a crafting scissors. You can don't put it down on her feet, girl. I've been known to cut credit cards, to do the little, the edge. Yeah, it's just a question of tools, and the tools, most of what you see is on the outside. And you can use fingers on the outside. It's just getting down in that little bit, yeah. And for example, this one, that's big enough for a swizzle stick, and it was way bigger to begin with. And then I could get my finger in that, and then you color it in and get that shape. Yeah. Wow. This one, that was pulled up, but I just had a little, that was probably a little ball burnisher on the inside, and then pulled up on the outside. And then the other thing, it's not enough color in this, so I also do colored ornaments. I'm not a painter. I can barely draw, but I can do.
Is that paint or alcohol?
Yes.
Which?
Yes. They're clear. These are the ones I love. Little flat bottom ones. You can use them as an ornament, or you can use them as a card holder. I have about 1 more year's worth of this. I've run out of my stash of cat containers. Well, these you can get all over the place. These I've only seen the cat containers. But what I do, they're clear. If you put the alcohol ink on them, you're not going to see the colors, because it's too transparent, translucent. You can see through it, doesn't really show up. So the colors, there's paint on the inside to make them opaque. What tends to work the best, I've used some others, and then alcohol and colour, which is why the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And these, I'll show you these, these are other little pottery things. Japanese will call them hashi ozu, which stands for chopstick rest. But I use them all over the place in my studio.
So clever.
So, a lot of these, well, the ones I have to put out for sale are intentional, but I do a lot of glaze testing that way, people talk about when they do this kind of stuff about how you should put, always fire with a test strip, you know, to make sure, you know, that you can test to make sure everything's fired right. Well, yeah, but I'm not gonna just do test strips and silver. I mean, even the other stuff. I know. So I make little bars, you know, like one of my earrings were one of my test strips. Although it's kind of tricky because you know a little bit about firing, and particularly with the base metal ones. And those are the ones people make a big deal about. You really have to do test strips with them. I do earrings or charms. If it works, I've got a useful piece, you know? If it doesn't work, it's not a guarantee it didn't work. Because when you fire the base metal, they have to be in what's called a reduction atmosphere, meaning you have to get as much oxygen out of the way. Because they won't sinter, they will tarnish before they sinter. They react, the base metals react to oxygen when they're exposed to heat. So what we do is you get a metal container or a ceramic container, fill it with carbon, put them in there, cover them with carbon. And the carbon burns and uses up the oxygen in the kiln. And so they're just getting the heat. Except remember this binder that we're trying to burn out? The binder needs oxygen. That's why I say it's trickier to fire the base metals, because you have to do it in multiple stages so that you get the binder burned off, and you have to get it burned off before the sintering starts. And one of the tricks with textiles in those is a lot of times the big piece will kind of use up all the oxygen in the space, and the little one doesn't get enough. And so it will start to sinter before all its binder is gone. And so your little one will fail and your big piece is okay. So you have to use other techniques to make sure it's in good shape.
This is complicated.
That's why I say base metals are harder. The silver is just easy. Yeah, so when I started, all I wanted to do was get findings that I couldn't find. And this is a bead by Jessica Rutherford. I don't know if any of you know her. She's a glass artist that used to live in Pittsburgh. And you know, you go to a bead shop and you try to find little caps for it. And so I made little caps to go with it. And I started doing some pieces to use with beads. Then I started saying, you know, you can do layering things of different kinds, so you can get, you know, I didn't show this, but this is the bottom piece is layered. It has textures on both sides, and then the top piece of the whole is cut so that it lines up. Sometimes I do add gemstones. There's some over there that have some. You can do that. Some gemstones you can fire in place. Some you add afterwards. Where'd my rings go? This is a ring with a ruby. Rubies and sapphires can be fired in place. This ring has a pearl. Pearls will burn up in the kiln. So you make the ring with a little post in it, and then you add the pearl afterwards. This was something I started doing, making these little spool shapes, working with my beads. That's where this idea came from. The question was, how big can I go before it starts to slump? I'm right at the limit on this. But as I said, I'm never going to go this big again anyway, but you know. So, oh, here's one. This is a little collage. So there's a regular texture on this side, and then this one has just little pieces, a whole bunch of different textures kind of put together. I make a whole series of these called quilts. I tried to get one in one of their quilt shows, and they wouldn't take it. That's so. I read it. Say it now. I did not say it. But anyway, it makes for a fun story. But anyway, so there's just all kinds of, things you can do with it, and I just love the creativity and the variety of things that
Great.
anything else?
Beautiful, interesting.
I have a studio in Regent Square. My printer's dead, so I don't have more business cards, but there's one over there you're welcome to take a picture of. I will have an open house. It's in Regent Square, and Regent Square itself has a big community yard sale the Saturday after Mother's Day.
Oh, good.
Whatever day that is. Anyway, it's community wide. It's this huge yard sale. I open up to have an open house. I admit I'm not selling things at your prices. But the community center where I built my studios in a community center building, the Wilkins School Community Center, and they have a big used book sale and then a plant and herb sale. So it's just a nice community event. And people come from all over for it, it really is a big event.
And when did you say that is?
It's the Saturday after Mother's Day.
Saturday.
I can look at my calendar.
No, I'll look back and look.
17.
Okay.
Are your studios in the local?
It's in the local school community center, yep. Up over the front door.
Oh,
It's a great studio.
I like it. It's 13 feet wide and 25 feet long. And it has the only room in the building that still has the original windows. Great windows that face north. I mean, the light in there is just.
what's your studio address?
7604 Charleston. 15218. It's right off the edge where Edgewood Swissville exit. And it's past the Squirrel Hill.
Great old school building.
Yeah, and you kind of have to go off. I mean, your GPS will tell you what to do. You have to go around the block. You can't make the turn onto Charleston because that last half a block is one way towards the main street. So you go around the block. But you get to see more of the community. Don't sell that way.
And if you don't have time to go there, you can shop tonight.
Kim got. I don't
Credit card readers here. 4 cash.